Prince William is furious, and for good reason. King Charles has reportedly stripped Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis of their HRH titles, right after a private conversation with Queen Camilla. No warning, no explanation. Just a royal shakeup that blindsided even the palace staff. Was this truly about protocol? Or is something deeper at play? Is Camilla pulling more strings than we thought? And why were William's children targeted? The silence from the crown is deafening, but the reaction behind the scenes is explosive. Stay with us as we break down what really happened and what this means for the royal future. The decision that shook the palace. The walls of Buckingham Palace have seen scandals, secrets, and silences, but this time, the whispers came with a sting that pierced right through the heart of the royal line. Charlotte and Louis, stripped of their HRH titles. No press conference or official statement, just a quiet directive, passed down like a family secret. The public didn't see it coming. But neither did Prince William. Behind gilded doors and tight-lipped corridors, King Charles made the decision after an extended private conversation with Queen Camilla, a woman who, decades ago, was once at the center of royal controversy, and now appears to be guiding it. It's been confirmed by more than one palace insider. The king's change of heart came swiftly, and his advisors were stunned. Some described it as out of character, others a strategic move. But no one denies the spark that lit the fuse, a discussion behind closed doors reportedly led by Camilla that shifted everything. The decision targeted the younger two Wales children. Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis would no longer use his or her Royal Highness in formal settings or future communications. And that alone shook royal tradition to its core. Because by birthright, as grandchildren of the reigning monarch, they were entitled to the HRH designation. That's not ceremonial fluff. It's a symbol of status, duty, and historical lineage. When Elizabeth II passed and Charles ascended the throne, protocol automatically elevated Charlotte and Louis into official HRH status. So why was it being undone now? That's the question that turned a royal adjustment into a royal scandal. Even more stunning was the silence surrounding the decision. Prince William, the next in line to the throne, was never formally consulted. Not asked, not even notified ahead of time. The news reached him the same way it did the rest of the household, through quiet internal memos and murmured conversations. Sources close to the prince say he was blindsided, deeply offended, and utterly betrayed. And yet, there was no explanation. The palace offered no reasoning, no press statement, just quiet enforcement of a change that redefined how two of the youngest royals and heirs of Princess Diana's bloodline would be presented to the world. Some within the royal circles have tried to frame the move as part of Charles's broader monarchy slimming agenda, but others question the timing, the motivation, the influence behind it. Because Camilla's role in the decision has not gone unnoticed. One royal aide whispered, "You don't touch William's children without his approval, ever." And to do so without warning, that wasn't tradition. That was personal. Suddenly, the issue wasn't just about protocol. It was about power, about legacy, about a future king discovering that his own children's royal identities had been quietly erased by the man he's meant to succeed. And if that sounds like the beginning of a civil war within the palace, that's because it just might be. Stay tuned, because what happened next would reveal just how furious Prince William really was. William's immediate fury. The reaction came fast, and it wasn't quiet. For a man known for his composure, Prince William's fury shocked even his closest aides. The moment he was informed, not by his father, but by a senior advisor, he reportedly stormed out of a meeting, immediately demanding a call with the king. What followed, according to palace insiders, was one of the tensest phone conversations in recent royal history. "You've crossed a line," William allegedly said, his voice unshaking but full of restrained anger. It wasn't just the stripping of the titles that set him off. It was the utter lack of respect. No discussion, no heads up. His children, reduced in status without so much as a conversation. This wasn't just a royal slight, it was a personal betrayal. Some insiders claim that William had already been feeling the weight of stepping deeper into his future role. With Charles facing ongoing health issues and increasing public scrutiny, William had taken on more royal duties, more appearances, more pressure. And now, amid that growing load, came a decision that felt like a slap in the face. But it wasn't only about power or status. For William, this was about family, about his children, about protecting them from the very kind of royal games his mother, Princess Diana, once feared. "This isn't leadership," William reportedly told a close friend. "This is punishment disguised as protocol." And what made it worse? The rumors swirling that Camilla had been behind it. The same woman his mother once saw as a threat to her marriage, now influencing decisions that directly impact Diana's grandchildren. This moment wasn't just a misstep between father and son. It was the breaking of trust, and the start of something deeper, a royal fracture that might not be easily repaired. But William wasn't the only one affected, because just down the hall, someone else was reeling: Kate. Camilla's quiet influence. She doesn't need to speak loudly to be heard. Queen Camilla has always operated in the background. Subtle glances, hushed conversations, private dinners with the king. But insiders have long noted that when it comes to Charles, Camilla's voice carries immense weight. And in this case, that weight might have tilted the crown. Sources inside the palace say Camilla has been increasingly involved in conversations about the future structure of the monarchy, particularly how slim it needs to be, financially, publicly, and structurally. But there's a deeper current running beneath her polished exterior. Some royal aides suggest Camilla has always been uneasy about Diana's enduring legacy and how William and Kate's children, especially Charlotte, embody that memory. Charlotte, who is often compared to Diana for her poise and sharp gaze, and Louis, with his mischievous charm, are the living echoes of the princess the palace still struggles to contain. Did Camilla see them as reminders or rivals? Camilla voiced concerns about title overload, one insider claimed. She didn't think Charlotte and Louis should carry HRH if they weren't senior working royals. But others aren't convinced it was about tradition. They say this was personal, a quiet reshaping of power, not just within the monarchy, but within the family dynamic itself. And to many inside the palace, it sent a chilling message. Camilla doesn't just walk beside the king, she helps him steer. The queen consort, who once faced public hatred, is now wielding influence over who counts as royal and who doesn't. And her influence has already left a crack in the crown's foundation. The role of royal protocol, or a convenient excuse. Ask the palace, and they'll tell you this was about structure, streamlining, modern monarchy. But for many royal watchers and insiders alike, that explanation rings hollow. Because royal protocol doesn't work retroactively, and it certainly doesn't target heirs without due process. By definition, the children of the heir to the throne are entitled to HRH status. The moment Charles became king, Charlotte and Louis became Her Royal Highness and His Royal Highness. So, what changed? The palace's vague statement cited the king's ongoing commitment to a leaner monarchy. But that reasoning didn't sit right with critics, or with many within the firm itself. If this is about protocol, one royal historian said, why leave George untouched? Why target just 2 of the 3? That question echoed across media outlets, private briefings, and inside royal family WhatsApp threads. Because the move wasn't clean, it was surgical. Some now believe protocol was a convenient cloak, that this wasn't about modernizing, it was about marginalizing, quietly sidelining the grandchildren that Camilla doesn't call her own, protecting the royal spotlight for a smaller, more controlled front. It's a theory gaining traction, especially when paired with Camilla's rising visibility and her children being subtly folded into royal events. It begs the question, is the monarchy evolving or being re-engineered from within? One thing is clear, tradition wasn't followed. It was bent, and the fallout from that twist reached the Princess of Wales. Kate's private reaction. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. But those close to her say Catherine, Princess of Wales, was deeply shaken. For a woman who has spent over a decade mastering the balance between tradition and motherhood, the decision struck a nerve. Kate had raised her children to understand duty, to respect their roles, to move through palace halls with dignity and humility. And now, with the stroke of a pen, 2 of her children had been stripped of their titles. No explanation, no discussion, no respect. Sources say she was more hurt than angry, a pain that went deeper than protocol. It was personal, because the children being labeled as less royal felt like a judgment of her parenting, her family, her role as future queen. She's always played by the rules, one aide said. To see her children punished, despite that, it broke something. Behind the scenes, she became more protective, more wary, watching who spoke to her children, who guided their roles, who whispered in Charles's ear. And while she remained composed in public, smiling at engagements, waving at cameras, those closest to her say a line had been crossed. Kate, once the monarchy's quiet strength, is now watching the palace not as a subject of duty, but as a mother. And that's a very different kind of loyalty. Because you can't undo a mother's disappointment. And soon, even Diana's ghost would feel it, as her own warnings seemed to resurface in the most chilling way. A flashback to Diana's fears. Years ago, Diana warned the world, but few truly listened. She said the palace would turn cold, that rules would be used as weapons, that power could be reshaped in silence, without explanation. Now, with Charlotte and Louis stripped of their titles, quietly, suddenly, and without cause, her words feel less like prophecy and more like a warning come true. Back then, Diana feared how the firm would treat her sons. Now, that fear has stretched to her grandchildren, and the way it's unfolding is painfully familiar. Charlotte and Louis, still so young, are experiencing something their grandmother once lived through, being erased without being consulted. Insiders say William has been increasingly reflective, revisiting private letters and recordings Diana left behind. In them, she spoke of love, but also of legacy. She feared the monarchy would mold her children into something cold and scripted. She wanted them to remain human. Now, William sees that legacy being manipulated, Not just his mother's, but his children's. Diana's spirit still looms over the palace. Every time Charlotte curtsies with poise, every time Louis's cheeky smile charms the cameras, every time the world says, "They remind me of her," that spirit grows stronger. But this move, this sudden stripping of titles, it feels like an attempt to control that legacy, to dilute it, to draw new lines between who belongs and who does not. Royal experts have pointed out that Diana was stripped of her own HRH status after the divorce, a decision that broke her heart, even more than the separation. She once said, "I may not be HRH, but I'm still their mother." Now, history repeats. Her grandchildren bear the cost of silent palace politics. And this time, there's no Diana to shield them. But as the public would soon prove, her legacy is far from forgotten. Because while the firm was caught up in quiet protocol, the public was getting loud. The public eruption. The moment the title story leaked, the backlash was instant and brutal. Social media lit up. Hashtags like #HandsOffCharlotte and #Justice for Louis trended within hours. Royal watchers, Diana supporters, and even casual observers began questioning the decision and the motivation behind it. "Why punish the children?" read one viral tweet. Another, "Even after all these years, they still can't handle Diana's shadow." Within 48 hours, the story had become global. From British breakfast shows to late-night American TV, the question echoed, what was King Charles thinking? Outside royal residences, small crowds began gathering. Protesters held signs, "Respect Diana's line," and "The future deserves better." One mother outside Kensington Palace said, "This isn't just about titles, it's about fairness, about children." Meanwhile, major newspapers were divided. Conservative outlets defended the king's decision as modern monarchy management, while more liberal voices called it an emotionally reckless act. Even the Times ran a stark editorial. "A king divides, a nation watches." The public had long accepted Camilla, but not like this. Not when it meant erasing Diana's grandchildren from royal recognition. Not when it felt like history was being rewritten again. And as the storm outside grew louder, inside the palace, the silence became suffocating. Because if anyone was caught in the middle of this explosive fallout, it was the third child, the heir to the throne's heir, Prince George. George caught in the middle. At just 10 years old, Prince George is already carrying a nation's expectations. The crown looms over his future, even as he balances math homework and family dinners. But now, with Charlotte and Louis stripped of their titles, the pressure on George has become something entirely different and far more uncomfortable. Sources say he was confused when he overheard talk about titles at home. "Why do I still have mine?" he asked Kate, reportedly during a quiet moment after dinner. It's a question no parent should have to answer. Because how do you explain to a child that, in the eyes of the monarchy, he's more important than his siblings? How do you teach equality in a system built on hierarchy? George, by all accounts, is kind, gentle, reserved. But insiders say even he has begun to notice the difference. How people address him, how the media treats him, how palace staff respond. Charlotte is still composed. Louis still spirited. But something has shifted. The line has been drawn, and George is on the royal side of it. William is reportedly heartbroken by this dynamic, because what he's tried to avoid, sibling competition, resentment, division, is now being engineered around his children. "It's déjà vu," one palace aide said. "It's Charles and Andrew all over again, or worse, it's William and Harry." Diana once worried the firm would pit her sons against each other. Now, it may be starting with the next generation. Palace politics. Who's really in charge? On the surface, this decision came from the king. But behind the curtain, many believe it's a sign of something deeper and more unsettling. A power struggle. Insiders whisper that tensions between King Charles's and Prince William's camps have been building for months. The two households, Clarence House and Kensington Palace, now operate like competing corporations. At the center of it all, Queen Camilla. Her influence, once assumed to be symbolic, is now seen as strategic. She's not just appearing at state events, she's in the private meetings, the title discussions, the planning sessions. And with each passing week, her reach seems to grow. One aide described it as a quiet consolidation of control, not just over Charles, but over how the monarchy will function after he's gone. It's not about age or health anymore, they said. It's about who's steering the future. And that's what worries William. He has spent years preparing for kingship with humility and vision. But if key decisions, like the treatment of his own children, can be made without his input, what does that say about his future reign? Is this about streamlining the crown or controlling it? The whispers are only growing louder, and the real question now is this: can William regain control before more of the royal family is cut out of its own story? What this means for Charlotte and Louis. On paper, losing the HRH title might seem symbolic, a change in stationery, a shift in how names are announced at events. But in reality, it alters everything. Without HRH status, Charlotte and Louis no longer receive the same levels of security, protocol protections, or state support. Their roles become less defined, more ceremonial than central. They may attend events, but not represent. They may inherit wealth, but not power. More importantly, they are now perceived differently. By the media, by the public, even by those within palace walls. Experts warn this could impact their school life, press coverage, and future opportunities. Will Charlotte now be treated like a minor royal while her brother prepares for the crown? Will Louis be allowed a private life or simply pushed aside? And emotionally, this could reshape their identity. Being born royal is complex. Being told halfway through childhood that you no longer count the same way, that leaves a mark. Kate and William have already begun adjusting their family dynamic. Fewer public outings, tighter circles, less palace presence. Because it's not just about dignity anymore, it's about protection. But the question now is, can this be undone? Or will Charlotte and Louis be raised not as part of the monarchy's future, but as symbols of its shifting past? Next, we explore how this decision is tearing father and son apart, and what William might do next. The fallout between father and son. The fallout was swift, silent, icy. King Charles and Prince William, once aligned in public and private, haven't been photographed together since the title decision. A joint charity appearance was suddenly postponed. An annual family lunch was attended separately. Behind the scenes, it's far worse. Insiders say their conversations have been reduced to formal messages, passed through aides. One senior staffer revealed, "There's no shouting, but there's no warmth either, just distance." William, furious, reportedly told close friends, "This is not leadership. This is erasure." The removal of HRH from his two youngest children wasn't just an act of protocol, it felt like a personal betrayal. A line crossed without warning. For a man raised in the shadow of Princess Diana, who taught him to protect his family before the crown, this wasn't just a royal disagreement. It was emotional. It was primal. Kate has reportedly urged William to hold his ground but stay calm. She knows the power of optics, but behind the palace gates, she shares his pain. Charles, meanwhile, has offered no public comment. But palace insiders suggest he believes streamlining the monarchy is the only way forward, that trimming titles will help restore public trust. But trust, as William now knows, doesn't come from rules. It comes from respect, and in his eyes, that has now been lost. This isn't just about who holds a title, it's about who holds the future. And for the first time, the world is seeing a fractured crown, with a silent war behind it. So the question becomes, will William stay silent or strike back? Will William fight back? The crown may be heavy, but William is no longer afraid to wear it. Insiders say the future king is preparing a measured but firm response to his father's move. Some believe he may attempt a private reversal through the Privy Council. Others think he'll apply pressure in a way the palace fears most, through public presence. William's popularity with the British people has surged in recent years. He's seen as steady, compassionate, human, and now that goodwill might become his sharpest weapon. All he has to do is show up with Charlotte and Louis, one royal advisor noted, and the public will know exactly where he stands. Kate's role is equally vital. She remains the most respected member of the firm, and any appearance with her children is instantly iconic. Her quiet strength and visibility give William a natural platform. Together, they don't need to shout. They just need to be seen. But it's not just about PR. William is reportedly weighing deeper moves, including reworking future plans for royal engagements, ensuring Charlotte and Louis maintain a visible presence despite the loss of formal status. It's a symbolic way of saying, they still matter. There's also talk of internal reshuffling, reducing cooperation with Charles's household and establishing more autonomy for the Wales family. Some aides describe it as the quiet beginning of a future reign. Because while Charles may be king now, William is the future, and that future is watching. The question now isn't if William will respond, it's how far he's willing to go. And as we approach the final point, it's clear this isn't just a family feud. It's a crossroads for the monarchy. The future of the royal family, hanging by a thread. For centuries, the monarchy has endured war, scandal, betrayal, and change. But rarely has it faced such internal fragility. This isn't just about a king and his son. It's about two competing visions of royal life. One, controlled, trimmed, hierarchical. The other, modern, inclusive, rooted in emotional truth. And at the center of it all, two children, Charlotte and Louis. Their titles may be gone, but their presence now carries more weight than ever. They've become symbols of the monarchy's future, and whether it has room for compassion and fairness or remains trapped in old cycles of power and protocol. Support for the monarchy among younger generations continues to dip. Critics argue that the institution feels increasingly out of touch, a relic unable to evolve. Moves like stripping titles from innocent children only reinforce that perception. And yet, this moment has sparked something unexpected. A shift in sympathy toward William and Kate, toward a new kind of leadership, toward a royal family that listens more than it commands. Charles's decision may have been rooted in logic, but monarchy isn't just about rules, it's about story. And now, the story being told is one of pain, division, and a son standing up for his children. Publicly, the palace remains quiet. But behind closed doors, the cracks are showing, old alliances are crumbling, And the next chapter is being written not by decrees, but by defiance. Because in the end, titles can be taken. But legacy? That's built through action. And William, the son of Diana, the father of Charlotte and Louise, is just getting started. This wasn't just about titles, it was about power, legacy, and a family at war with itself. What will William do next? Will this change everything for the monarchy? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned.